Someone once said that money can't buy you happiness, but it makes your unhappiness a lot more bearable. You see, the worst thing about losing money is actually surviving the mugging, because then you have to go to the bank after going to internal affairs, after going to the police station, because you suddenly realize how many things are connected to your wallet besides your girlfriend or your wife. Right, let's be realistic here. This is the 90s. Besides your husband or your boyfriend. You see, to get your life back on track, you actually have to risk your life to drive to all these places. And driving in South Africa is just as bad as getting mugged. And if you've ever had a gun pointed at you because it wasn't quite your turn to go at a stop street, you'll know what I'm talking about. Because South African drivers are not nice people. They've just coined a new term for it: road rage. You see, people lead double lives in this country, because even sweet little Aunt Betty, who works in the accounts department, who never forgets your birthday, moves in behind a steering wheel and turns into a road rager behind the wheel of a rage mobile. She's going to town, and no one is going to get in her way. You know what I'm saying? And someone said to me the other day, "I'm just going to the bank quickly," and other humorous fairy tales. Okay, no one goes to the bank quickly. Let's say that you actually get to the bank the same day you intend on going. You still have to find parking. And that's more or less like finding a place to relieve yourself during halftime at Ellis Park. Okay. So eventually you walk into the bank, and of course there's a queue. Because if there wasn't a queue, it would have been a bomb scare. And you're standing in the queue as opposed to lying on the floor with your hands above your head. And eventually, you are number 20 in the queue. And eventually, you get to the front of the queue. And eventually, you get told that you're in the wrong queue. So what I'm saying is going...
You've never heard of Direct Line?
Folks, we seem to have a budding, sort of up-and-coming comedian in the audience. Would you like to come up and do something?
I was just saying that if you had Direct Line, this would never have happened.
Direct what?
I was formerly the chairman of the Premier Group until I retired 3 or 4 years ago. And we decided to come down to Franschhoek and turn over a new chapter and take on a new challenge, which is wine farming. We're selling wine already, learning the game, finding out what the regulations are. And we do exports. We do about 25 to 30% of our production goes overseas to Holland and Belgium and Germany and England. In my former position, I had 1 or 2 secretaries doing quite a lot of the work. When I retired down here, I missed them enormously because they kept the whole show on the road. Then Direct Line came to the rescue because I had to do everything myself. I had to operate the fax myself, I had to operate my PC myself, and I had Direct Line, which gave me direct access to my banking activities. And that made my life much, much easier.
Well, I am a housewife, although I am a trained nursing sister, so I do quite a lot of voluntary nursing, particularly appertaining to hospice because I'm hospice trained, and I go out and see my patients 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm very involved with Rotary, which is a service organisation that strives to help the community. I also read a lot. I sew, and generally, of course, I've got 2 children. One is overseas at the moment, but the other one is at boarding school. My husband is a general manager of a company, and I do quite a lot of running around for him as well. And I decided to try it on telephonic banking because it's the convenience with the hours, because in the early days the hours were still more convenient than the banking hours. They have subsequently expanded the hours. So I went into First National Bank in Eastgate, where I filled in the forms and everything. Also for my husband as well, because my husband has access to it as well, and he finds it convenient from time to time. He can do it from the office without going to the bank.
I'm actually a businessman manufacturing ladies and girls fashion wear. I'm in constant contact with my factories that are sewing my garments. I'm in contact with my pattern maker, designer, And I'm always in contact with my customers because they're from all over in South Africa, they're from all over. But my personal commitment is the running of the Orient Football Club, which comprises of all youngsters. There's about 3 teams that I have at the moment. I'm also involved in the Princeton Social Club, which is based purely on friends. And I was also a referee, but I can't commit myself to refereeing because of the various commitments I've got at the moment. I remember once I went to the bank and I asked for my statement, my daily balances. Actually, I used to do it every day. And there was a time where this lady told me in future I've got to be paying for my statements, you know, for my printout, that what they used to give me free. So I asked her, is there any other means of this? And she told me, why don't I have a look at the leaflet of Direct Line? And I was most impressed with it. It was a very minimum fee. And I think within hours I was connected to Direct Line and I never looked back.
We obviously want to perform at our best to give our clients the best service possible. And to do that, we put in a lot of effort.
Our lifestyle is our business and our business is our lifestyle. What we actually do is we have 3 service companies, the one being a staging company, which is Matex Innovations. Then we get to the Star Tracker side, which is where people want a main platform speaker, for instance, a celebrity, a magician. We will source them and supply them. And then the other service we have is our disco, which is Mango Tango Disco, and that's self-explanatory.
We had a friend explain the concept to us, and once we heard about it, we decided to investigate, and from then on we enrolled and never been happier.
I'm an academic, and I started my first academic job at the University of Cape Town after leaving Johannesburg. Then, after 5 years in Cape Town, the opportunity came up to move to Manchester, and I decided not to sell up altogether since I was planning to come back to South Africa eventually. So now when I'm in the UK, I can keep those interests running, and then when I return, I can carry on where I left off. So when I moved here, it was just obvious almost, I guess, to just maintain the service. And I spoke to Direct Line about this. They gave me a number to call rather than a toll-free number. And so it works extremely well.
I'm a chartered accountant. I work for Arthur Anderson. I'm an audit manager there. What that means for me is that during the day, I really am tied up quite a lot. Attending meetings, going out to see clients, whatever. And it becomes very, very difficult during the day to find time to go and stand in long queues at the bank. And that's why Direct Line is particularly helpful for me, because I can do all my banking with a quick phone call from the office, and that's it.
The company that I'm with is a worldwide company, Ream. They are right around the world manufacturing a multitude of different products. But in South Africa, we manufacture from drums down to pails in some of our plants. I monitor the quality system of 6 of our plants. So this keeps me fairly busy. I flit from one to another from time to time, and it has its peaks and its valleys, peaking towards the end of the month. I qualified for Premier account last year, and in talking to the staff at my branch at Prospecton, they told me a little about Direct Line, but they got me intrigued because of the so-called intriguing questions asked when you first make contact with the Johannesburg operation. And that's what made me go for it. I was very interested to follow up on what they recommended would be quite an experience.
I probably contact Direct Line once, maybe twice a week, transferring funds or just checking balances. I think that's mainly what I use it for.
All my bills are linked onto Direct Line because I find the convenience. If you open a new account, you phone them up, they will add it onto the list that they have on their computer at no problem whatsoever.
I use the Direct Line services on a daily basis. My main inquiry is my daily balances. I now and then do inter-account transfers, and I check on my daily deposits.
Obviously, I use the service as payments to our suppliers, to our artists. Anything that I need to pay, I can do through First Direct. We also use their service for statements, I know exactly where we are at any time by just phoning, and a couple of minutes later I can have that statement in front of me.
Down here in Franschhoek it might take 3 weeks to get post, you know, so I can get it on the fax. And so it makes running our bank accounts far, far easier.
I call them about once a month, I'd say, you know, sometimes more regularly, generally for payments of things, especially strange things like when I moved here after about 2 years, I had some stuff shipped from South Africa and I needed a payment done in South Africa, and they just sorted it all out. I didn't even write a check, they just set up an account and did the transfer.
But I have used them for services whereby I've wanted to ask questions about banking in particular.
They're very, very geared up and knowledgeable about all the financial services connected to First National Bank. I do have unit trusts, so from time to time I phone them, and I have recently had good advice from them to transfer from one fund to another, which I have done very successfully.
When I phone in, they will give me advice on what I've got in the account, and if they think we should be investing it on, and that's what we do. And we take the advice of the people at First Direct.
I had my will, in actual fact, updated, and happened to mention it. They organised all that to my convenience to have my will redone. Buying shares, I buy and sell shares. That is all done through Direct Line. And in fact, the other day I tried to buy some new shares that hasn't been listed through them, and they came back to me and said no, they couldn't do it, but they put me on to the bank stockbrokers, and I was able to get the necessary forms to do that.
We had a traumatic experience last year with a theft from our home, and amongst the things stolen was a briefcase with a lot of my banking cards, etc. in there. And I automatically phoned Direct Line for assistance, which again they readily gave. I was sorted out within a few days.
We had a situation where we had actually sent a check off to somebody some months before as a prepayment for the service, and 2 days before the function the artist, we just phoned to check the final details, and they said they hadn't been paid and that actually hadn't got the booking, so therefore they would not budge unless we paid them the money. So the answer was to just get onto the phone and do a direct transfer. It was done within an hour and the problem was solved.
I had one particular incident. I was Kalami had something on that day where you could go around the track in a Porsche, and a friend of mine was there but didn't have any cash with him, but he had his cash point card, didn't have any cash in there, and it was incredible. I could just make a quick phone call from where I was. They transferred cash into his account really within, I think, minutes. He could take out immediately, got the tickets, and there I was going around Kalami in a Porsche. So that's one incident that was just particularly helpful. It just worked very, very well.
A year or so ago, I had made application for some shares, and I hadn't made arrangements to transfer the funds to the organisation, and then I had to go overseas urgently. But the day that the offer closed, I remembered that I hadn't made the arrangements to transfer funds. And so from overseas, I picked up the phone, I phoned Direct Line, I said to them, I gave them my problem, even though the other people weren't connected into my system. They sorted it out within about 10 or 15 minutes, and the whole transaction went through. And it's nice to be able to say that the shares doubled in price, so it was a worthwhile transaction.
About a year ago, I phoned to inquire about my credit card, which had taken some time to arrive. And Direct Line said, well, I must have had it already since I bought 7,000 rands worth of shoes. Unfortunately, I was in Manchester at the time, and the shoes were bought in Randburg, so I got a bit hysterical. But they stopped the card, they sorted it all out, they had my account credited, the new card arrived by registered mail, and it all just was utterly painless.
When you're overseas, you can phone them and they will phone you back again. And that I have used in England on one occasion because I needed some money transferred to my daughter overseas. And that they were very, very good about indeed. In fact, I wouldn't say there's a situation that they couldn't cope with.
You know, since I've been using Direct Line, it's fantastic. There's just no standing in long queues at the bank. There's none of that aggravation. There's a few things which get on my nerves as much as standing in a long queue.
Having to remember when to pay accounts, having to write out checks, having to address envelopes and find stamps in order to send off those accounts in time. That's all been eliminated with Direct Line.
Well, they're nice people to deal with, I must say. You phone and say things like, well, I hate being put on hold because it's inconvenient from the UK. And they say, well, here's a number you can call that'll get you straight through and then somebody will take care of you. That sort of thing is really the kind of personal service that I need if I'm going to keep maintaining my banking in South Africa from the UK.
The people who are consultants there have to be well trained and have been selected very nicely for the jobs in which they do.
If there's something that is out of the usual, they go and find out how to do it without the hassle and bureaucracy of the normal banking process.
If I've got a problem, I just pick up the phone and I know that I'm going to get it sorted out.
It's like knowing your bank teller, it's absolutely marvelous. In fact, it's probably better than that because you can be assured of getting the same person on the phone every time.
The service is excellent and I would recommend it to anybody to use.
The Direct Line is not only a necessity for business people, but it's also for individual people who has a banking account.
It's great.
It's fantastic. Convenience really beyond belief. It works very, very well for me.